All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our kickoff of Torah Studies 5785. That silence that you heard was meant to be a round of applause. Folks, welcome to Torah Studies 5785. Thank you very much. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal, everybody. Say it again. I know. 2 rows. It's like the Sanhedrin over here. We have our court, our other court. Here's the deal. If you saw any of the marketing or advertising that I did on this course, you very well know that the objective of this series, this year, the entire year, for the next 12 months, this is an ambitious project. We're exploring specifically, look, it's a parsha class, which means we're going to study the Torah portion. Every week, it's a parsha class. We explore the weekly Torah portion. But the focus is going to be on exploring and really breaking open Rashi's commentary on the parasha. Here's how we're going to do it. Each week, we're going to quote a verse. We're going to bring Rashi's, we're going to cite Rashi's commentary, and then we're going to ask a bunch of questions and provide some different perspectives and get to the depth, to the heart and soul of Rashi. Specifically, we're going to do so. Thank you. Specifically, we're going to do so through the lens of the Rebbe's teachings on Rashi, which is, it's hard to describe exactly just how magnificent this lens is, but we're going to do so as this will unfold. You will see for yourself. There's nothing as thrilling as studying Torah with Rashi, with the Rebbe's insights. I guarantee it. There's literally nothing as thrilling as this experience. Okay, that being said, tonight's class stands slightly apart from the other classes in the series, insofar as tonight's class serves as an introduction to the entire series. And so our focus tonight is not going to be on analyzing Rashi's commentary or a specific comment of Rashi per se, but it's going to be on understanding who Rashi was, how he created his commentary, how the commentaries comment on his commentary. You see what I did there, right? And how the Rebbe developed a new style of learning Rashi starting in 1964, exactly 60 years ago this week. So that's what we're going to explore tonight. Tonight is the overview, the background, and then we're going to jump in subsequent sessions to the actual heart and soul and the nitty-gritty. First thing you need to know is Rashi was born in the year 1040 in the city of Troyes. Did I say that right? Did I really get that right?
Yeah. City of what?
Troyes. Okay, in English it's spelled Troyes, but it's Troyes. Troyes, France. It's a city in France. Troyes. Is it, which part of France is it? Do we know? I mean, you know. Do you know where it is?
East, yeah. I mean, east, center, east kind of.
Got it. Wine country? Maybe?
He was in
No?
No, it's not that.
He was.
Wasn't he originally in the tax business? It was 1040.
Oh, very good. Very good.
How could
So-
it not be wine country? There's wine named Rashi.
Well, there's a wine named Rashi, but that's a little bit later that happened. Rashi lived for 65 years. He passed away in the year 1105. A little bit of background about his birth. His parents, for many years, did not have children. The story goes, the legend of Rashi's birth goes as follows, that his father somehow came into possession of a very precious stone, a very precious gem. And the local church wanted it for one of their service needs, whatever it is. You know, they needed a gem. They needed just that gem. And the story goes that he basically forfeited. He wanted to make sure that it wasn't used in the service of what he deemed to be, Rashi's father deemed to be foreign service. I don't mean like the foreign service, like, you know, but like in foreign service, Avodah Zarah. And
The French Foreign Legion.
they do have the French Foreign Legion, not that. And so here's what happens. What happens is that his father, I forget the end of the story. Does anybody remember the story? He discarded it, threw away. This is like the origins of the pearl. Remember Steinbeck's The Pearl? You guys remember that novel? Anybody study The Pearl? No?
Yeah.
I'm recalling this from my high school. where the guy at the end, after it caused all the tsaros, he throws it into the ocean. Oh, that was such a spoiler. I'm so sorry. If you haven't read the Pearl, then I have no idea how it ends. All right, but all that being said, I don't know if the movie came out.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
What about
Right, we always need that. So his father gets rid of the stone, takes a loss, makes sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands, as it were, and as such is rewarded with the son. They named their son Shlomo, and the father's name was Yitzchak. So Rashi's father's name is Yitzchak. The son is Shlomo. Shlomo, the son of Yitzchak, that is his name. When he got called to the Torah, Shlomo, the son of Yitzchak. Rashi was an incredible scholar at a very young age. It was clear that this man had skills with a Z at the end. This man knew how to study, and he had a sharp way about him. Rashi began penning a commentary on both the Talmud and on Tanakh. The Talmud is the Gemara. As I observe the Gemara, this bottom shelf over here, there's a whole set of Talmud Bavli, of the Babylonian Talmud. So he wrote a commentary on that. He also penned a commentary on the entirety of Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, all 24 holy books of Scripture. Now, Yerushalmi, I don't believe it has Rashi's commentary. No. So now, here's what happens. How does Rashi go viral? How does he become famous? Here is the story told about how Rashi's commentary becomes famous. Rashi started writing his comments on small slips of paper. And he would go into the Beis Medrash, and he would hear a question. He would hear a discussion, a Talmudic conversation, and the head of the academy would be teaching and would ask questions, or students would ask questions. And when there came a difficulty, he would write down a comment. He would write down a comment on a piece of paper, a short comment, not asking the question, but addressing it head on, just answering it. And he would slip the paper into the copy of the Talmud of the head of the yeshiva. And when he came the next day to teach, he opened up his copy of the Talmud, and there was a piece of paper and had the answer to his question. He was amazed. Who wrote this? Well, he did this anonymously for a while, for maybe a few years, until eventually the word got out that this was the work of one Shlomo, the son of Yitzchak, and then his fame began to spread. He wrote three. He did not write in Rashi's script. I'll explain that in a second, where that comes from. Rashi wrote his Talmudic commentary 3 times. 3 editions of Talmudic commentary. We have obviously the final edition. Why 3 editions? He continued to edit and edit and edit. And Rashi's game was all about being concise and being succinct. If you look at other commentaries, everyone's getting paid by the word. I think this, you thought that, here's this question, here's this possible answer. Everyone is super verbose. Rashi is known for his brevity. Rashi is brief, he's to the point. He doesn't even ask any questions in his commentary. He's the only commentary I know of that doesn't ask a question. All he does is throw answers out consistently. It's incredible. You have to be wise to understand the questions that he's answering, but Rashi just gives you the information. He gives you the explanation. Rashi wrote his Talmudic commentary 3 times. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it recorded how many editions. Good to see you guys. Good evening. Pull over a chair or table, as it were. Come on over. So Rashi, I haven't seen how many editions of Torah commentary he wrote, how many iterations of that. But he wrote his Tanakh, his Torah commentary as well. And that is what we have to this very day. By the end of his life, Rashi was renowned for his commentary, for his erudition, for his succinctness, for his brevity, for his ability to answer and address the biggest questions with just a very brief comment, a very quick comment, just like that, to answer all the questions that one might have. I got to tell you this. I wrote this in one of my emails. The first recorded Jewish book, Hebrew book ever published is, I believe it's 1475. It was published in Italy. The first Jewish book ever published in Hebrew is Rashi's commentary on Torah. It's incredible. That just shows you just how central Rashi's commentary is in the Jewish world. So you're wondering, so what happened until it was published? Like any book, how did they study it? Help me out here.
Well, if they had one
No, what happened? Manuscripts.
Oh.
People would hand copy it over. That's what they would do. They would copy it over by hand. All books were like that. I mean, we're spoiled by the printing press. Sorry, we're spoiled today by digital, and that's even easier. Just send the text, and you're done with it, right? Voice, you can voice, right? We write with our voices. Back then, if you wanted a copy of Rashi, you had to copy it over or pay someone, a sofer, not a sofer, but a scribe to write it over. By the way, this is not even going back that far. There's a lot of Chassidus back in Russia was also written by scribes. They would write Chassidus before it was typeset. I mean, typesetting require you got to have funds for that. You got to have money. You have to have the machinery. You have to have. So this was all handwritten. Rashi's commentary. Already by his death, Rashi was renowned as a scholar, and that's how we open up tonight's class, by reading some of the words of effusive praise written by his contemporaries, but really those that lived shortly after his passing. So we're going to begin. Does everyone have a copy? Just want to make sure everyone's got a copy. Yes, or a book. You got one? Okay, great. We're going to get started. I'm going to pull this up on my screen as well. Sure, I got this right. Here we go. Okay. Let us begin. Let us begin with text 1a. This is the Ibn Ezra, Rabbi Avram Ibn Ezra, one of the great biblical commentaries, who was born in 1092. Rashi passed away in 1105. That means that the Ibn Ezra was 17 years old when Rashi passed away. So as a 17-year-old young man, this is what the Ibn Ezra writes. Give me 1 second. I'll pull this up on the screen. All right. Take it away. Helene, you want to read this?
So
Where it says a star has gone forth. Yeah.
A star has gone forth from France, a community established on firm foundations. An awe-inspiring commentary he penned, his sobriquet, exponents of faith. His is a book of redemption for all who question, pleasing to the nation of Israel.
Thank you. This is what the Ibn Ezra, who was a biblical commentator, and you see there a linguist. He always comments on the language of Torah in his own commentary on Torah. The Ibn Ezra, upon Rashi's passing he was 17 years old. He pens this eulogy, and the eulogy he talks about how Rashi is a star, how Rashi penned an awe-inspiring commentary. His sobriquet, his mashal is exponent of faith. But if you look at the Hebrew, the second line, you can't replicate the Hebrew on this. Parshan Dasa. Parshan Dasa. You see that? Jake, Parshan Dasa. What's Parshan Dasa? Who knows the word Parshan Dasa? Parshan Dasa is one of the sons of Haman.
Oh my God.
One of the 10 sons of Haman that you read quickly. When you read it in one breath and toward the end of the Megillah when everyone's ready to break out the Hamantashen. Parshan Dasa is one of the names of Haman's sons. So he's reclaiming the name Parshan Dasa, dividing into two words. Parshan means an exponent of Dasa. Das is the faith of our faith of Judaism. Parshan Dasa, he says, Rashi is the real Parshan Dasa, not the evil Parshan Dasa, not the son of Haman who was hanged, but the Parshan Dasa, the one who the exponent, the one who expounds upon matters of faith, matters of Jewish faith, matters of Torah. Anyway, that's a little bit of the Ibn Ezra's eulogy. Take a look at text 1b. Let's just continue. Eve,
I
please read text 1b.
just wanted you to emphasize that those three statements rhyme.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the three statements
Right,
you just read.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. In
it's
the Hebrew,
amazing.
Yatvasa, Parshan Dasa, Tirtzasa, exactly. In the Hebrew, it's a lyrical thing. All right, Ramban, Nachmanides. Nachmanides, one of the great commentators, lived about 100 years lived in the next century after Rashi's passing, also found his commentary is widespread. Take a look at how he writes in his introduction to his own commentary. He writes about the centrality of Rashi's commentary.
I will place his illumination before me the light of the pure candelabra, the commentaries of Rabbi Shlomo, a crown of glory and a diadem of beauty. To him go the rights of the firstborn. I will study his words with soaring love.
I love that line, the rights of the firstborn. He says, I'm writing a commentary. In his own commentary, he writes as a disclaimer, anything I write comes after Rashi. Rashi is still front of the class, head of the class. Rashi at the front of the pack. Rashi's leading the way. He is the one that holds the candelabra. We're all walking behind him. We're all walking behind his light, and thus I pen my commentary. That's what he says. Take a look at text 1C, the Meiri. Lived again 50 years after the Ramban. We have the Meiri. Text 1C, Jake, please take it away.
Chief among all commentators is Rashi, of blessed memory. If his attackers are numerous, he is equipped to defend, pairing with words succinct and wise. Only select thinkers discern his greatness, deflecting bundles of questions with but a word.
And he thank you. And he basically, the Meiri, again, one of the commentaries, and he was a primarily a Talmudic commentary. The Meiri points out that when it comes to Rashi, Rashi defends himself against his attackers. Not that anyone's actually attacking Rashi, but if anyone ever had a problem with Rashi's commentary, all you need to do is look carefully at his words, because he probably answered your question with a deflection, with a word, with an inference. Rashi probably already answered any queries that you had. So Rashi is precise. Not only is Rashi, I mean, like, how do you even begin? Rashi's commentary is the single most commented on commentary. Let me explain what I'm saying. Rashi's commentary has over 300 other commentaries on his commentary. There are over 300 what they call super commentaries written on Rashi's commentary. That's crazy. That's not just how many people have studied your commentary. That's how many people have decided to write a book exploring or expounding upon your commentary. That's Rashi.
Are these all in agreement, or some of them are?
No. First of all, nothing's in agreement. No, they're all exploring different angles.
Oh, it's the same, Rashi.
That opens it up to interpretation. Exactly. You would think. It's not. Now, the more succinct it is, on the contrary, the more you can try to figure out what he meant and what he's saying and what question he's answered. Rashi is incredible. Rashi, according to our tradition, wrote his comment. Well, yeah, let's read it inside. Norm, are you up to reading 2a? You want to pass it? All right. Jose, please read text number 2a.
Rashi wrote his commentary with divine inspiration.
Take a look at that. Thank you. The Shalah HaKadosh, the great Shalah, who lived in the 1500s, he says that Rashi wrote his commentary, Beruach HaKodesh. You know what Ruach HaKodesh is? It's like prophecy, a spirit of prophecy, divine intuition, divine inspiration. Every word of Rashi is precise. Yes, a human being of flesh and blood wrote the commentary, but our faith, our tradition, look, the holy Shalah, no greater authority than him testifies about Rashi, that Rashi wrote his commentary with Ruach HaKodesh, and that means that every single word, every single idea is holy and pure and precise. There's a story where the Rebbe's father, who was a Kabbalist, expounded upon a Rashi, one of Rashi's comments, and explained it according to Kabbalah. And one of the assembled in the class said, did Rashi really mean that? Was Rashi, you just explained Rashi according to Kabbalah, but was Rashi a Kabbalist? Did he mean it? So the Rebbe's father answered, he said, look, Rashi wrote his commentary with divine inspiration, which means that it's open to all layers of Torah interpretation. Whether or not Rashi knew and intuited that, he was guided almost from above in his writing. Yeah.
People like Rambam and even like the Rebbe, I'm sure there are many hundreds of commentators on those guys as well, right?
On Rambam, there are many. On the Rebbe's like just now, so like there's not that many commentators on. There's some, but no, Rambam would have. Rambam would have, a few dozens. No one, but nothing close to the number of commentators that Rashi has in his commentary. I mean, it's crazy. Let's take a look at the Chida. Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, in the 1700s, text 2b. Burton, are you up to reading? Burton, please read text 2b.
Precise with his word, hinting at the multiple thinking, the change of a single letter.
Look at that, a single letter with precision. Every single thing with precision. Every single thing with meaning. I'm going to go through a few of the basic, what we call super commentaries, and you don't have to remember them now, but part of the purpose, or not part, the entire purpose of tonight's class is to give everybody here a background, understand, appreciation for Rashi, and a background of some of the major players that will come up in every class that we will do as we analyze Rashi. So some of the major commentaries on Rashi, 300 super commentaries, but there's some major ones. Number one, I don't think you have it in your books. Number one is known as the Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, known as the Re'em. Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, Reish Aleph Mem, Re'em also means a ram. It's a strong animal, so Re'em, that's the commentary, one of the commentaries on Rashi's commentary. Then you have, and he lived in the 14 or 1500s, Rabbi Yehuda Loi, known as the Maharal of Prague, the creator of the Golem, right? So he wrote a commentary on Rashi called Gur Aryeh. So that is his commentary on Rashi. Rabbi David Prado, the Maskil of David, Rabbi Mordechai Yafi, Levush HaOra, and Rabbi Shabtai Bas, Sifsei Chachamim. These are some of the major works explaining Rashi. Don't worry, there will not be a quiz on that, but just so you know, if you hear the Re'em, if you hear the Gur Aryeh, or the Maskil of David, or the Sifsei Chachamim, etc., you heard it here first, and you'll continue to hear these names as our series progresses. Now, let's explore where was Rashi aiming? And if that question doesn't make any sense, let me explain my question, and then I'll ask it, and then we'll explore it. So we know that there are many different angles through which, or whatever, many different angles that we can approach Torah at or from. In fact, it famously says Shivim Panim LaTorah, there are 70 facets to Torah. So when you hold, it's like a diamond. You hold a diamond, you turn it, every turn, it sparkles again, it hits another, the light refracts off another facet, another angle, another cut. Diamond cutters, any diamond cutters here? No? So when I used to cut diamonds, so I'm kidding, I didn't cut diamonds either, but no one can call me out on it because I just checked. So no one, right, so when you cut a diamond, my understanding is that you're trying to create the correct angles to create, to maximize your illumination. That's my understanding. Okay, so Shivim Panim LaTorah, 70 facets to Torah, and there are 4 levels of Torah interpretation, and we're going to explore those right now, and we're going to see where Rashi hits. So let's take a look at text 3a. That's our next text. And Doreen, please take it away. This is actually from Zohar, from the work of Kabbalah, but it just succinctly states the 4 levels of Torah interpretation.
Torah can be understood on 4 levels: the plain understanding, the allegorical understanding, analytical understanding, and the mystical understanding. Beyond these are secrets upon secrets known only to God.
All right. It's that last level that we're going to explore. I'm kidding. No, we're not exploring the secrets known only to God. So there are 4 levels known by the acronym Pardes, because you see there, Shatim, Ra'ayes, Drashes, Saides, right? Pei, Reish, Dalet, Samach, spells the word Pardes, which means orchard. The orchard of Torah, right? The orchard of Torah is comprised of 4 different spaces, 4 different areas. There is Pshat, which is the simple meaning. There is something called Remez, the allegorical meaning, and I'm going to explain all this in a second. Drashos, the midrashic understanding, and sodos, the Kabbalah, the mystical. Okay, so what are these 4 levels? In short, Pshat is the simple meaning of the text. So the verse says something, like in Torah, or the Talmud states something. Forget Talmud. Talk about Torah. The verse says something, a story. Abraham and Sarah are having a conversation. They're discussing something where Pharaoh is getting involved. Whatever it is, it's the simple meaning of the text. God says to Noah, I'm going to destroy the earth. What's going on? Give me the simple understanding of this. Remez is already not so straightforward. Remez is not so simple. Remez is you take the numerology of this word, right? The numerology of this word, and they have a link. They have a numerical link. Aha! So this word alludes to that word, and this meaning is connected with that meaning, and this verse, and and that verse, which seem not connected, are really connected, and we can draw an inference from one to the other. All of that is remez, all hints in the text. Then you have drush, the 3rd level. That's any sermon that you've heard. Takes a verse and draws out life meaning, draws out a parable, a life lesson from it. We learn from Noach how to take care of people, etc. You're learning, or how to build an ark in 120 years, as it were, whatever you're doing. So it's like you derive life lessons from the text. That's drush, that's midrash. Midrash is expounding and pulling out ideas. So you have pshat, the simple meaning, that's level 1. Level 2 is remes, allegorical, a hint here, a hint there. And then you have drush, you have the homiletical, homilies, parables, life lessons that are drawn out from the text. And then you have sod is the Kabbalah. Sod is speaking about energies and worlds and God and everything, all beautiful things. Where's Rashi? Where does Rashi hit? I think we all, pshat, good. How do we know this? Text 3b. Yaakov, please take it away, text 3b. Rashi, this is Rashi himself testifying about his own comment.
There are many agadic, non-legalistic explanations in the Midrash. These were arranged by our sages in proper order in Midrash, Reshit Rabbah, and other Midrash texts.
Next page.
I, however, have come only to teach the plain meaning of the text, and I will also use such agadic texts that clarify the plain meaning of the biblical text, each word in its proper way.
Comes along Rashi, and this is right, I mean, it's toward the beginning of Torah, chapter 3, verse 8 of Genesis, and Rashi says, V'ani levasi el pshuta shemikra. That's the beginning of the second paragraph in Hebrew. I am coming only and exclusively to explain pshuta shemikra, the simple meaning of the verse. You want medrash? There's an app for that. You want Kabbalah? There's an app for that. You want remez? There's an app for that. You want pshat? You've come to the right door. You've come to the right address. I got you. You want the simple meaning, the plain meaning of the text? I got you. Great. Seems straightforward. The problem is, he just mentioned that second paragraph that he also mixes in some midrash. So now we're like, what does that mean? Like, is he only pshat? Is he also midrash? So this leads to a bit of a conversation amongst the commentaries on Rashi as to trying to understand, when does Rashi employ midrashic explanations versus when does he stick with the pshat? Are you with me on the question? Am I using too much Hebrew?
Where's the commentaries after?
Yeah, the commentary, the main commentaries, and I'm sorry that I didn't mention the dates. The main commentaries that I mentioned 5 commentaries of the Maskil David, the Re'aim, the Gur Aryeh, etc. They were all around 15 to the 1500s and 1600s, maybe or 500 years later. By the way, but do the math. 500 years later or 25 years after it became available in print widespread.
Yeah.
Think about that. Right. When do commentators really kick in? Shortly after it's available widespread in print. So that's that.
Printing press.
The printing press, correct.
Right.
It was available manuscript for, look, no one's going to eulogize Rashi and say, or no one's going to say, I built my commentary on Rashi if there's no Rashi around. No one can print in 1475, the first edition of Rashi, if Rashi doesn't exist, if he passed away nearly 500 years prior. Nearly 500 years prior. Obviously, or 400 years. Obviously, what we're dealing with here is we're handwritten manuscripts, which were probably hard to get. People had them, but maybe they had a copy in the synagogue and you had to go there, or a library, you had to go there, or maybe the rabbi, the Rav, had one in his house. It was hard to come by, etc. It's not by accident that after the proliferation of the printing press and after printed editions of Rashi, thousands, I think the first edition was like 3,000 editions of Rashi. That's 3,000 more than existed before that. So now, so the Rashi, so just so you know, Rashi, the commentaries on Rashi, written in around the 1500s and 1600s, the main ones, the original ones, the 1500s, the 1600s, early 1700s. By the way, still to this day, there are more books being written on Rashi's commentaries, on Rashi's commentary. So it keeps on going. But again, back to this point.
But when you say the book that was printed of Rashi,
yes.
I mean, we're familiar with Rashi on the bottom.
Yeah.
His commentary on the Torah is at the bottom.
Yeah.
The book that he was printed, the first one that was printed, when you say Rashi, what was it, just like commentary?
Good question. Yes. The first Rashi edition that was printed in 1475 did not include the Torah text. It was just the headers. It had like chapter verse. It had the header, the few words there, and the commentary of Rashi. Then shortly thereafter was the first edition of, I think even the first Chumash ever printed included Rashi already from the get-go. I'm pretty sure the first Chumash ever printed on the printing press included Rashi's comment from the beginning. Rashi, you cannot overstate the centrality of Rashi to Torah study. It's like almost like You can't, it's, saw somebody write that it's like eating bread with salt, right? It's like, assuming that that's what everyone does, right? It's like, that's part and parcel of the experience. You can't enjoy it without. Now, Rashi testifies about himself. Text 3b. I am coming only and exclusively to explain Pshuto Shomrikra Pshat. Pshat means the simple meaning of the verse. And then he says, but I've also included some of the Midrashim. And now the question is, well, what does that mean? So this leads the commentaries to break out in dispute over what Rashi meant and how Rashi employs or wields the power of Midrash. When does he use it? When does he not use it, etc.? So text number 4. Let's read text number 4. Michael, you up to reading?
Sure.
Text 4. All right, take it away. This is from Rabbi Blau. I'm gonna talk about him. I mean, he's currently alive. He's a modern author. I'm gonna explain a book that he wrote called Kol Rashi a little bit later, but let's see what he writes about the Midrashic use.
With respect to this question, we find multiple approaches among the super commentaries on Rashi. Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, for example, thought Rashi makes use of homiletic interpretation wherever possible, cited in the introduction to Maskil L'David. In his introduction to Maskil L'David, Rabbi David Prado, one of the great super commentators on Rashi, disagreed. He wrote, our teacher only made use of homily when absolutely necessary, meaning when the literal translation failed to satisfy.
All right, please continue.
On the other side of the spectrum, we find the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer Ashkenazi, the author of Sefer HaZikaron. In his super commentary to Exodus, etc., he wrote, Rashi chooses homiletic interpretation over the obvious and plain meaning of the text. He stated even more clearly, Rashi neglects the literal meaning of the most biblical passages and relies instead on the homiletic interpretations of our sages of blessed memory. When he wrote on several occasions, I have only come to reconcile the plain meaning of the text, he referred only to the specific passages under discussion, not to the entire Torah.
That's one take. You have other takes. You have a bunch. Thank you for reading that. You have a bunch of different positions on Rashi's position. Again, we can't ask Rashi. He's no longer with us. So you have now all of these other rabbis who are trying to explain Rashi, who are weighing in. One rabbi says, Rashi typically sticks with Pshat, with the simple meaning, unless he wants to mix it up. Others say, no, he always mixes it up unless he wants to stick to the simple meaning. Well, I mean, which one is it? The Rebbe's approach is very different. And yeah.
Doesn't this rabbi not only say he looks at the Medrash, but it's homiletic, is he now talking about Drash?
Yes. This rabbi says that Rashi prefers Drash over simple unless he has to go simple. That's what I'm saying. You have from one extreme to the other, even understanding Rashi. Like, where's Rashi? How is Rashi approaching the verse? So what I'm really saying is, depending on who you ask, they'll tell you where Rashi was aiming, and you have different positions. We are going to take the approach of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe had a very clear approach to Rashi's interpretation. Yes, Yaakov, jump in.
So Rashi, in a lot of senses, was the initial commentator.
The father of Torah commentaries.
Right.
Correct.
So, and he doesn't say how he comes up with his explanation.
He never cited. He rarely cites sources.
Rare, every now and then, rarely. So if he doesn't, how would we know?
Correct.
Where what he's used.
You got to have a broad. You have to have a broad knowledge of prior sources, and you have to have a thorough knowledge of Rashi's commentary, and then you try to put it together. But since people put together facts in different ways, the same series of facts, different people weave together with different narratives, right? You can have the same evidence, but two people put together a different case, as it were. So you have one commentator that says he's mainly Pshat, a little bit of Drush. Says, no, he's mainly Drush and a little bit of Pshat. Here's the Rebbe's approach. Rashi, when he said, I am only coming for Pshat, when somebody says that, take them seriously. Believe, but if Rashi comes along and says, I'm only coming to give you Pshat, he doesn't mean only on that verse. He means my style is, my angle is only Pshat. And anytime he uses a Midrash, well then we need to figure out why he would mix that in if his angle is only Pshat. But that's the deal. And this is the approach that we're going to take throughout this series, and you'll see how this develops in a second. Text number 5, let's read this. Sandrine, please read text 5. This is from the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, and it's the foundation of our approach that we're going to take to Rashi.
At the age of 5, one studies Torah. At the end of 10, one studies Mishnah. At the end of 13, one is obligated in mitzvot. At the age of 15, one studies the Talmud.
How helpful is this? Just parenthetically, this is great. If you ever want to know a timeline of Jewish study, boom. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. 5 years old, Chumash. 10, Mishnah. 13, Bar Mitzvah, Mazel Tov. 15, Gemara. 15, study the Talmud. Great. Here's the key. Ben Chamesh Lemikra, Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra, the first line. At the age of 5, one studies Torah. Rashi. This is again according to some commentaries, as well as according to the way the Rebbe understands Rashi. Rashi is always speaking to and from the perspective of the Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra, the 5-year-old who's studying Torah. Meaning, Rashi's not coming at this from a place of, highfalutin sophistication. Rashi's coming at this from a place of simplicity and purity. The 5-year-old, when they're reading the story, what questions come to the 5-year-old mind? Sometimes it seems like a klutz kasha. Like, what kind of question is that? Rashi's going to address it. Something weird, an anomaly. A character speaks out of character. It's like, wait a second. Abraham would never say that. Why did he say that? Right? Sarah would never do that. Why'd she do that? Rashi will address it. Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra. Rashi's speaking. Rashi's giving us, if our tradition tells us that at 5 years old we begin studying Torah, how? How do we understand Torah at 5 years old? Rashi's commentary. But lest you think that Rashi is Torah dumbed down, like Torah reduced, right, to a very low level. On the contrary, Rashi is rigorous in his methodology. So, and again, this is all primarily driven by other commentaries on Rashi say this as well, but the Rebbe really hammered this home in his talks on Rashi, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how and in which context the Rebbe expounded on Rashi. But know this, the way the Rebbe understands Rashi is always speaking from the perspective and to the Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra. Imagine if you have a teacher teaching children Torah, and they start from the beginning, from the very first verse. You go through every verse and every idea, what questions will come up. Every question that the 5-year-old will ask, Rashi addresses it. If you need to be 35 to ask the question, if a 5-year-old would never ask that question because there's some sort of outside information, sugazon, that a child would never have, guess what? Rashi doesn't address it. Rashi does not address Rashi doesn't address the questions that come from outside information or other areas of thought. Will always follow the order of Torah. If it's something that was stated before and now it seems inconsistent, Rashi will address it. If it's something that's out of character, Rashi will address it. If it's something that simply doesn't really make sense on a narrative level, Rashi will address it. If it's a weird word that we've never encountered before, Rashi will explain it. He'll give us the answer. He'll explain what the word means. Rashi addresses and speaks to the Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra, the 5-year-old. Take a look at text 6a. Toba, please read this one, Rashi and the child.
The explanation for Rashi's comment was debated in several publications, and several answers were offered. However, each answer took up on average a page and a half. They cited many teachings from our sages of blessed memory, from other commentaries, even citing certain pages and footnotes from my teachers in Likutei Sichot. However, we must remember that these explanations are presented to 5-year-olds who wonder why we pester them with lengthy lectures. They want a simple and quick explanation of Rashi so that they can go and play. Engaging in lengthy explanations with citations from Hebrew texts, especially texts written without vowels, is off the mark.
You see, isn't that nice how the Rebbe phrases it? If you're trying to understand Rashi, and the only way to understand Rashi is through a 30-minute lecture of philosophy, then you're probably not explaining Rashi. Because Rashi does not require that level of knowledge. Rashi is for the beginner, the student who's first studying Torah. Rashi is speaking to the Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra, the 5-year-old. And by the way, you don't have to be 5. You have to be approaching it. And Rashi is when you approach the Torah text from a straightforward. I don't even want to use the word basic, but a straightforward level of understanding. This is where Rashi shines. By the way, the Rebbe was referring here. Okay, it's getting a little ahead of ourselves. There were public. I'm going to have to explain this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it twice. Okay, so that's where the Rebbe says no. If you need a philosophy lesson to understand Rashi, then you're not understanding Rashi, because a 5-year-old is not a philosopher. So if your understanding of Rashi is only based on philosophy, then you're not explaining Rashi. You're giving your own explanation. Text 6b. Adrian, please read this one. Text 6b.
Rashi wrote his commentary in a manner that his teachings are obvious from the plain reading of the biblical text. Rashi does not rely on the super commentaries of Sefer Hakari, Rabbi Mizrahi, or others to explain his meaning. These commentaries were written hundreds of years after Rashi wrote his commentary. When Rashi taught his students, they understood him without the aid of these commentaries. Therefore, we too should be able to understand Rashi by pursuing the plain meaning of the biblical text.
All right, there we go. So bottom line, the Rebbe says, if you need a complicated super commentary in Rashi, understand Rashi, well then, again, you're probably missing the mark. So the Rebbe was very insistent that Rashi is straightforward. Now, it doesn't mean that all the super commentaries are wrong. It just means that if we really want to understand Rashi, we have to think a little bit more simply and straightforward. That doesn't make it less brilliant, but it makes it more straightforward.
And it doesn't mean that you can't get a remez or a drush from Rashi, right? Because he's basically saying, this is the plain meaning, and now that you understand the plain meaning, now you can extrapolate on it. But I'm not saying that.
Correct. In fact, I was going to mention that a little bit later. The Rebbe, in explaining Rashi very straightforwardly, then draws incredible allusions and Kabbalah and halacha from Rashi. But first and foremost, you got to explain Rashi in Pshat on a basic, straightforward level. And by the way, I know I keep on using the word basic. If you think if basic is not so basic, but it's straightforward. It's straightforward. It's not.
Kind of thinking, you think about, like how you study music, right? You could think that learning scales is like, oh, that's really simple. But you can't improvise until you know your scales.
You got to get the foundation. You got to get the basics.
Rashi the first at doing that?
Yes. Rashi is the father of the commentaries. Up until that point, you had midrashim, you had other sources, but not like a line-by-line commentary.
Midrash is what helps to explain it?
The midrash was written, it's a collection of wisdom for 1,000 years prior. But like insights and extrapolations from the text, but not a running commentary on Torah. Rashi's the first one to write a running commentary. By the way, I was thinking of creating a class on MP3 and email it to everybody. We meet outside the shul and we run around the triangle over here and we all listen to the class at the same time and we call it running commentary.
What about?
I'm actually serious.
What about for Norman?
I'm actually serious.
What about for Norman P? Who are in scooter?
You can scoot around. What do you mean? Oh, you would make an exception, driving commentary, whatever.
Running commentaries and the Holy Rollers.
And the Holy Rollers.
There you go.
It sounds like a band now, speaking of music, huh?
There must have been a need at that
Yes,
time.
100%. Yes. Now let's explore. Now that we have a little bit of background, the biographical, the kind of the background of Rashi and his commentary, where he's aiming. Let me explain what happened in 1964. So I want to bring you back to Farbrengen. By the way, so raise your hand if you've been to 770 Eastern Parkway. I know some of you have, many of you have. Okay, so you know what it looks like, right? It's a basement. You all seen the basement? It wasn't that big in 1964. It was smaller. It wasn't as big. They expanded it over the years. Renovations happened after 64. But I'll tell you this: in 1947, the Rebbe's mother emigrated from Russia. This was right after her husband died. Her husband was arrested. I mentioned the Rebbe's father. I mentioned him before. He was a Kabbalist. He was exiled to Kazakhstan by the Russians for his efforts on behalf of Jewry in Soviet Russia. and he got sick, he got malaria, and he didn't make it. He passed away, and shortly thereafter, the Rebbe brought his mother to America. This was 1947. His mother lived, the Rebbe's mother, her name was Chana, Rebbetzin Chana. She lived in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, a few blocks away from the Rebbe. She lived, if you know the street, she lived in a building on the corner of President Street and Kingston Avenue. Kingston is the main thing. And President, that's like, I don't know, that's like the prime location. The Rebbe lived a few blocks away on President Street as well, 2 blocks down. And the Rebbe would visit his mother every day. Like every day would come over for tea. They would have like, I don't know, like 5, 6 o'clock or maybe even a little bit later. He would come over every day and visit his mother. He would walk her home. If she was out, he would walk her home. The Rebbe, arm in arm, they would walk down Kingston Avenue, and he would walk her back to her apartment. So she passed away on the 6th day of Tishrei, which is in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, in 1964. And then, of course, the Rebbe was in mourning, and the Shiva, was it a full Shiva, or was it? No, it was not the full Shiva, because Yom Kippur interrupted. Anyway, then they had the holidays, Sukkot, and Keter, etc. And then it came the parsha, the first parsha after the holidays, which is Noach. Because Bereshis is like, it's always like too soon. Noach. Here's how the Farbrengens would work, typically. Farbrengen is, of course, a Chassidic gathering where the Rebbe would share inspiration, insights, wisdom, Torah. So the way it worked was, Farbrengens, nighttime Farbrengens would start at 9:30 p.m. and then go, who knows how long. The daytime, the Shabbat day Farbrengens would start at 1:30 and would go for the rest of the day. So Farbrengens would start, let's say, at 1:30 for a Shabbat day Farbrengen. The Rebbe would typically give 2 different talks, addresses on different, timely themes or Torah themes. And then called the Sicha or Sichot. And then there would be a special tune sung. The Rebbe would deliver a mimer, a more formal Chassidic discourse, each talk and discourse punctuated by song and singing and l'chaims, etc. And then after that, it was a little bit more free-flowing. Well, in 1964, Parshat Noach, so this week, exactly 60 years ago from this coming Shabbat, the Rebbe did something different. He opened the Farbrengen and asked for somebody to bring him a chumash. That never happened. Like, bring me a chumash. And he read a verse, and he translated it. And then he read Rashi and translated it. And then he began to ask questions on Rashi. He asked questions, one question, another question, third question, fourth question, fifth question. And he started analyzing the Rashi. Interesting. Then when it happened again the next week, it became very clear. And for the next 23 years, at every Farbrengen, every Shabbat Farbrengen, the Rebbe would devote one of the talks of the Farbrengen to analyzing a Rashi. Over those 23 years, the Rebbe analyzed 800 Rashis. There are 800 Rashis in Torah, in the Chumash, that have a thorough working over by the Rebbe. 800. On each Rashi, there must have been between 6 and 12 questions. And I'm telling you, this year, we're doing this. I mean, this is the plan. We're going to take a verse, we're going to take a Rashi. The Rebbe would eviscerate Rashi. You have no idea. I mean, you're going to find out soon, next week. The Rebbe would take a Rashi apart. You've never seen someone intellectually dismantle an idea. The Rebbe would ask sometimes literally a dozen questions from every angle, and would leave Rashi like in shambles. Like, what is Rashi saying? What's his question? He doesn't ask questions, but what question is he addressing? What answer is he giving? Why is he saying this word, not that word? Not when you're done with the questions, you're like, I thought I knew Rashi. I have no idea what he's saying. And then the Rebbe would proceed to share typically one idea that comes from the simple reading of the text, and say, if you read all the verses until now, the obvious conclusion is this idea, and from that core idea would reconstruct the Rashi. And it took your breath away. Literally takes your breath away. Eviscerating Rashi, not really for the purpose of evisceration, but to deconstruct, to demonstrate how our previous understanding and all of the other commentators' understanding of Rashi are based on be careful how we say this, false premises. A false premise or multiple false premises when you break it down, when you break it open, you suddenly realize the brilliance and the truth of what Rashi is actually saying.
Wow.
He did this for 23 years. He stopped after his wife, Rabbi Chaim Mushka, passed away. And that was the end of the Rashi Sichot. It's clear that he did this in tribute to his mother. So for 23 years, every Shabbos, he delivered a talk. One of the talks, one was dedicated to exploring Rashi, 800 Rashis. From this, many perspectives emerge. Oh, you know what? Text number 8 said what I said. Oh, we're not going to read. Okay, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this quickly. Text 8. All right. I paraphrase this outside, but might as well see it as it shows up. The Rebbe arrived at his place. This was Noach 60 years ago. Instead of starting his sikha as soon as he sat down, as he usually did, the Rebbe requested that a chumash be brought to him. That the Rebbe should request a book during Farbrengen was extremely rare. It was the first indication that something unusual was underway. The chumash was brought, and the Rebbe opened it to Parashat Noach and began reading and translating the first passage. He then moved on to Rashi, reading and translating the second Rashi in the Parsha. It was a beautiful scene. Hundreds of chassidim crowding around as the Rebbe sat and taught Rashi like a teacher in Cheder, first translating and then proceeding to ask several penetrating questions, cutting to the very heart of Rashi's words. No one realized it at the time, but this was a historic moment. The Rebbe had just quietly and without much fanfare launched a revolution that would accompany every Shabbat Farbrengen for the next 23 years and would change the way we look at Rashi. None of this is hyperbole. This is literally the what happened and what went down and what proceeded. The Rebbe's analyses of Rashi is unprecedented. There's no one that spent as much time teaching Rashi as the Rebbe did. Literally 800 plus Rashis did the Rebbe address. And the Rebbe always came back to the simple premise. Rashi is addressing the 5-year-old studying Torah for the first time. But it's a smart 5. He or she is a smart 5-year-old. Not a 5-year-old that's not sure what you said yesterday, but a 5-year-old that remembers everything that was taught before, but is not expected to know anything outside of what was up until then. So if you posit that Rashi is addressing a question that's coming from elsewhere, that cannot be what Rashi is addressing, because you don't have that information. You started from the beginning, wherever you're up to, it's only based on that window of information. But based on that, there's a question, and Rashi is delivering an answer. He's giving a commentary to address that. There are many rules that come when you study Rashi with the Rebbe's insights. You suddenly it starts to crystallize. There's a whole structure to Rashi. There are rules to Rashi. In fact, Rabbi Blau, who we quoted before in one of the texts, wrote a book called Klali Rashi, the Rules of Rashi, based on the Rebbe's teachings and expositions of Rashi. And his book proceeds to outline 389 principles of Rashi taken from the Rebbe's analysis of Rashi. 300, which is Gematria Pshat as well, just so you know. Pshat, right? 389. 389 principles that rise from the way the Rebbe understands Rashi. In addition, as Yaakov mentioned before, once you understand the Pshat, you can also understand good evening. You can also understand many other elements of Torah, since every part of Torah is connected. So once you understand Pshat, you can also understand other dimensions as well. 2 things, and this is going to be very, very important as we continue throughout this year. The Rebbe would often share, in addition to the simple explanation of Rashi, the Rebbe would say how that explanation also alludes to other things. 2 things, 2 areas. One, Pele, wonders, Plaim or Niflaot, wonders of Rashi, and Yayin Rashi, the Yayin of Rashi. Pella means a wonder. Yayin means, of course, wine. Wine not. I'm kidding. Wine, right? Wine. There's the wonders of Rashi and the wine of Rashi. What's the wonder? I'm just giving you information that's going to come up next week and beyond. The wonders of Rashi are how Rashi's commentary alludes to matters of halacha, of law, which Rashi is not directly addressing, but it alludes to. And the yayin, the wine of Rashi, is how Rashi alludes to the mystical dimension, Kabbalah and Hasidus. So that is all contained, as the Rebbe saw it, in Rashi's commentary. Okay. Sorry? I'm not sure, but that's also a good book. Okay, so I want to share with you as we close out today's class. Yes.
Do we say Rashi's always coming to answer a question that we may not?
Correct.
It's what's bothering Rashi.
Something troubling the student,
Something
really.
troubling.
The 5-year-old who's studying.
Okay.
Rashi's helping us understand.
So the Rebbe first not give us the answer, but does he reveal what Rashi is coming to?
Yes, that's
And then-
exactly the
and then once he
methodology.
does that, then he moves on, then he
No,
expands.
so listen to this. The way, stylistically, the way the Rebbe would do this, he would quote a verse, he would quote a Rashi,
Right.
and say, and give an overview of how the traditional commentaries understood Rashi and what Rashi was addressing. Then we would I'm telling you, sometimes literally 12 questions. And when you're done, you're like, this Rashi makes zero sense. There's no way that you can't understand it. It's on the ground. 1, 2, 3, out. It's done. Rashi's out. It's out. A TKO, right? SummerSlam, done. WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan, out. And then the Rebbe would say, because we missed the whole point, because you got it all wrong. Rashi was not talking over there; he was talking right here. And the Rebbe would bring like something so obvious that when you're done, you're like, how did we not see that? And then with that one premise, all the questions fall away. Everything makes sense. Suddenly, every single piece makes sense. It's like the reverse of dominoes falling. Suddenly, all the dominoes stand up. Like everything stands up. Now, I want to give you, as we conclude, and this will be the last piece of today's class, I want to give you a few rules of Rashi. All right? These are some teasers that will come up. Oh, and by the way, stylistically, the way we're going to do this, every week, we're going to quote a verse, we're going to quote Rashi, we're going to ask questions, we're going to say the core of the kernel of the answer, and then answer all the questions. That's how it's going to work every week. But in the process of doing so, we're going to touch on some of these rules of Rashi. And at the beginning of each class, you're going to get a list of the rules that we're going to address in that session. Okay? Here are some of them. Take a look at some of them. Look at text number 11. Oh, it's the appendix. I knew something was bothering me. I'm kidding. The appendix, God forbid. Page 18, page Chai. Take a look at some of the rules of Rashi. As Rabbi Blau, and by the way, the Rebbe encouraged Rabbi Blau to write this book and looked it over. So, okay, you see that text 11? You see text 11, yes? The appendix? Oh, do you not have the appendix? You have the appendix.
Yeah.
Literally, you have the appendix, text 11. Okay, quickly. Rashi's purpose, number 1. Rashi's purpose to explain the plain meaning of the text, even if this contradicts all the halachic opinions. When we say plain, we refer to the plainest meaning, one that is understood by a 5-year-old. Next, Rashi's purpose is to address every difficulty that might arise on the level of a 5-year-old's knowledge. Therefore, when the answer is obvious to the child, Rashi doesn't bother to explain it. If it makes sense to a 5-year-old, Rashi doesn't touch it. Rashi typically begins by immediately presenting the explanation such that all questions fall away. It's the student's job to determine which questions Rashi was looking to address. Rashi doesn't tell you the question. He just gives you the explanation. You got to figure out what Rashi is addressing. Next, inasmuch as the 5-year-old studies the Torah in order, Rashi relied on, in all cases, on what the Torah and Rashi explained earlier. He will never require you to know any verse later, but only what was set up until then to understand what he's commenting on right now. Rashi does not have an expectation that you should know anything beyond what you've studied up until then. Rashi brings 2 explanations when each is not perfectly consistent with the plain meaning of the text, and when each complements the other. In such cases, the first explanation that Rashi offers is primary because it is smoother and closer to the plain meaning of the text. In other words, let me restate that. Rashi typically only brings one. Rashi typically gives one explanation that answers. If there's no single path that ties up all the loose ends, then he will be forced to bring a second interpretation. But always, the first will be closer than the second. That's why the first is first, the second is second. Let's continue. In most instances, Rashi quotes our sages without citing the source and without identifying them as midrash. Right? We said that before, right? Rashi doesn't typically quote his sources. In these instances, the midrash is consistent with the plain meaning of the text, and that's why the midrash is quoted. When Rashi uses phrases such as our sages taught or midrash, when he flags it as such, he intends to inform us that this explanation is not entirely consistent with the text plain meaning, though it can be made to fit in. So sometimes there is no way to explain it simply without relying on a little bit of shoehorning in some midrash. Rashi only cites the words from the passage that he intends to address. In other words, in his header, he cites the words that he's addressing. He never cites an additional word. He never fails to cite a word that he addresses. Rashi also cites words from the passage that serve as a proof for his explanation. Finally, in most instances, Rashi does not cite the source of a teaching because the source doesn't aid in our understanding of the plain meaning of the text. When Rashi does cite the source, it indicates that a question might arise. In this case, the answer can be found by examining the original source text. There is an exquisite structure and formula for Rashi. And my friends, I cannot tell you how excited I am to have the opportunity to explore this in literal detail, in immense detail over the next year, over the next 12 months. We're going to examine on each and every single Torah portion in the Torah. Well, starting from left of so we missed the first two, but because tonight was an overview and last week was, Bereshit, and we didn't have a chance to meet. So starting next week, every week, a verse, a Rashi, questions, the big idea, the big reveal, and then everything will rise in exquisite harmony. If you like study, if you like puzzles, if you like emotional thrills, if you like roller coasters, if you like surprises, join me for the continuation of this journey next week, same bad time, same bad channel. Thank you very much for bringing me. All right.
Bye-bye.
I don't even know how pina coladas came in. Folks. Oh, that's something else. Guys, also quick announcement. Next week, just in case you thought the learning couldn't get any better, we have this nurturing relationship starting a week from tonight. Sorry, a week from tomorrow night. Next Wednesday, daytime, nighttime, nurturing relationships. This is not exclusively a marriage course. This is any and every relationship that you have, friends, colleagues, coworkers, parents, children, nephews, strangers, rabbis, all your relationships enhanced with this course, Torah Wisdom on Relationships. Check it out on our website. All right. Any questions?
Rabbi, I have a quick question.
Say it again.
I have a quick question. Did Rashi?
Hold on, Richard, give me 1 second. Yes. Other commentaries of Rashi? He might have been like at the first, at the head of that curve where the Rashi, where commentaries really kicked in. Oh, his grandsons wrote a commentary on the Talmud. The Tosafos.
Yes, daughter.
3 daughters. They were scholars. They rapped tefillin. His daughters.
Nova.
Say it again. They what?
The great Nova, Rashi's daughter.
Yes. Yes.
But the Rambam, he considered
The Rambam. Rambam. Yes. Correct. Yes. Yes. Good question. That's important. Yes. The Ramban. All right. But yes, no, it's gonna be hard to get it out. But yes, the Ramban Nachmanides, the Ibn Ezra that we quoted before, those would be considered commentators in their own right. They were contemporaries, even if they lived 50 years or 100 years later. But there are certain. We'll have a class in Tosas, little by little, year by year. That's it. Hold on, where's Richard? You wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. The question is, was it Rashi himself?
Hold on 1 second. Yes. Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Everyone gets involved because sometimes you got to pull from other places. I'm telling you, this is like you don't need I don't need to have any caffeine when studying a Rashi with the Rebbe's interpretation. Like that's it. Like you want a high, boom, you got this right here.
Do it in Yiddish or in Hebrew?
All Yiddish. All Yiddish. He spoke in Yiddish. Well, he quoted the Chumash in Rashi in Hebrew, but he spoke in Yiddish. Absolutely. All right, hold on, Richard. Shay, it's great to see you. Eric, it's great to see you. Matt, Danny, Larry, Vlad, Susan, Rich, I'm circling back. Don't worry. Dr. Maxie, Mom, Jacqueline, Faye, Chad, Renata.
I don't understand.
And Diane, I'm sure Diane is there as well. All right, Richard, jump in.
Okay, quick question. Was Rashi himself said he was relating to 5? Was it Rashi or the Rabbi? Was it Rashi himself said, I'm
Yes. Rashi himself says yes. But some of the commentators say don't take them so seriously. And the Rebbe says, no. When someone tells you what they're about, take them seriously.
Rashi said, I'm aiming for a 5-year-old. That was Rashi himself who said that. Is that correct?
I cannot explain. I've never been more excited in my life. I literally, I'm telling you.
So many children. This is more exciting.
I'm not comparing this to family. 1 second. That's the next week. That's Wednesday's class next week. If you don't know how family and Torah ranks. Listen, here's the deal. There's nothing as thrilling as studying Torah studying Rashi, and I'm like, all right, it's gonna happen. Listen, next week we start. Next week we get into it. Centurion, it's great to see you. Yeah.
What's bothering Rashi?
What's bothering Rashi? Good.
Sunday, I went in Cleveland to
Oh, the synagogue.
synagogue.
Yeah, sure. Classic.
I mean, it's
Cleveland Heights, Beechwood Heights,
Yeah.
Cleveland Heights.
has the feeling of
Civic, sure. Oh, nice. Nice. All right. Thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you to all who are here. All right, we'll see you guys. It's getting a little noisy here because we have our base medrash night. I don't know if you guys can see. We have a bunch of guys studying Torah. My kids are here. Opa! Over the World Series. You see how Torah's winning out over the Yankees and the Dodgers. Unbelievable. All right, folks. There's no better place. No better place. All right. We'll see you next week. If not sooner, we'll see you guys. Laila Tov. Sending lots of love. Thank you guys. See you.